Welcome back to Old School Sports and our Out of the Park Baseball 23 playthrough of the Colorado Rockies. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate all the comments down below and the interaction with viewers of the series. Always learn a lot from the ideas and the recommendations you share. So those of you who have commented in the past, appreciate it if you keep commenting. And those of you who haven't shared thoughts in the past, would love to hear what you're thinking as well. Because we could probably use some help with what we're trying to do here. Our first season in the Rockies is complete, 74-88 record. We were closest to a 500 team most of the year, and then really kind of collapsed the last couple months of the season. Taking a look at the team statistics, we got off to a bit of a slow start. Then for May, June, and July combined, we were one game over 500. But then an awful, sickly 9-17 in August, and then also hit a losing record in September. Did end up the number one offense in baseball, but unfortunately, playing in Colorado, we were the number 30 pitching staff in baseball. And actually, I may have lied about that. I think we actually ended up second in all of baseball in runs scored, but we were first in the National League. So we're beginning off-season activities. Made a bunch of offers to salary arbitration eligible players. Two of them, unfortunately, Chris Gonzalez and Tyrone Colbert. Gonzalez, who had been in the Colorado organization before we took over, and Tyrone Colbert, who we made a trade for last season, don't really want to talk with us. So that's not optimal. That apparently we've done something to make them angry, and it could just be our poor performance on the field. So we're making arbitration offers to them to keep them both on board, but won't get the benefits potentially if they're popular players of having signed them before we get to arbitration cases. Two pending free agents, the veteran Emmanuel Johnson and then starting pitcher Jordan Medrano. Probably going to let them both hit the free market. Medrano, as I mentioned, was a starter for us this past year. Only pitched 12 games in the majors, and he's wrecked in terms of his injury proneness. Do like that he's an extreme ground ball pitcher with good movement, but is a player who's going to be 30 years old shortly. And the fact that he's wrecked physically, and he's also not interested in talking an extension with us, similar to some of those other players that I mentioned. So nothing we can do on that front right now. Do worry a little bit that the performance of the team on the field is causing those issues. You can see he's very unhappy with the team record, angry with his performance. See if there's any similar trends in the arbitration eligible players who won't talk to us. Colbert's very unhappy with the team record. He's also very unhappy with transactions, and we picked him up in a trade in July, so he just may not want to be here right now. Chris Gonzalez, very unhappy with team record and his performance also. So hopefully if we're closer to 500 next year, some of the reticence among these players will not be repeated when we get to arbitration and free agency next year. Also have made offers to the minor league free agents that we want to keep. Not a ton of them as we continue to churn the minor league organization for the Rockies and bring in players who are hopefully better and or have better personalities to round out the rest of our minor league system. Speaking of that minor league system, as the offseason begins, 11th ranked minor league system in baseball. So that's some progress. The team was 18th when we took them over a year ago. I believe we dipped all the way to 19th. Certainly the international amateur free agency this year helped. We picked up Yoel Bueno, 16-year-old out of Venezuela. Still looks like he could be a very impactful offensive player for us down the line. Love the fact that he's smart and has a good work ethic. He's a corner outfielder, and he's not a particularly great defensive corner outfielder. But with that bat, I think we're potentially going to be quite pleased with what he becomes if he's able to kind of fulfill his potential. And as we think about the finances for this upcoming offseason, the great news right now is that we've got about $39 million for free agents. And that's even right now with Andres Ertzeri, who's due to make $21 million next year and currently is not willing to waive his no trade clause on the books. So we could open up, potentially around $60 million for free agents this offseason if we're able to move on from Ertzeri, which would give us a lot of ability to change this team. So that's the good news. The bad news is that our budget did not get bumped at all this season, flat with last year at $200 million, although we did generate more revenue per game this year than last year. I think with some of the expenses we added to our staff in terms of our payroll for personnel, we churned, I think, 6 out of the 8 key roles at the major league level, so had to pay out some contracts there, which didn't help. And then we also worked on our minor league system. You can see we've also got a few pending offers out there with guys who we let their contracts expire after 1 year with us who were mediocre coaches, didn't feel like we needed to hire them. But now we've got the opportunity to bring on some more talent. So negative that our budget did not get bumped, and perhaps even more negative than that is that when we look at upcoming free agents, I don't know that there's anyone that we're incredibly excited about with all that money to spend. Take a look quickly, at the pitchers. Rogelio Loera, who we've talked about back in our Pittsburgh playthrough, 37-year-old, one of the great pitchers in the history of baseball at this point, just an incredible strikeout pitcher. You look at the number of times he's led the league in wins, innings pitched, walks, and he led the league in strikeouts for 12 straight years between the Houston, Atlanta, and the Yankees. So he's had an incredible career. 5,380 strikeouts in 3,283 innings, and he's still durable at the age of 37. Would certainly be a great addition with that incredible movement that he has, as well as the extreme ground ball tendency. If we wanted to go and kind of spend all of our money in one place, if you're ever going to spend money on a 37-year-old pitcher, it's going to be one who's durable and one who's coming off a season where he pitched 32 games, over 200 innings pitched, and still struck out over 300 batters. I don't know that we would go down that path. You look at his demand, and that's basically all the money that we have. Signability also reportedly impossible. But clearly that would be a massive upgrade to our pitching staff potentially, and maybe allow us to supercharge this rebuild for a couple of years. Other than that, a lot of good above average pitchers feel like lefties are where we really need to go. Obviously that works in the favor of Loera, but we could also be looking for some lefty help out of the pen. Looking at the batters who are available, right fielder Josh Hurd, kind of the star of the offseason with that incredible home run power, coming off a year when he hit 56 homers and 133 ribbies. Both led the AL, as well as his 179 WRC plus and his OPS. So he's coming off a great year, but looking for over $30 million. And then, Juan Rivas kind of stands out as a really attractive offensive player, coming off of a fractured wrist, so don't know exactly what he's going to look like. He's a DH, and you can see over the last couple of years he's played 50 and 111 games at the major league level, although he does still have normal injury proneness at this point. Would certainly be a nice bat to add, but with that poor outfield range and the relatively large dimensions of cores, he'd have to play DH for us. And given that our offense really hasn't been the problem. We're probably going to be a little more focused on trying to find some pitching this offseason if we go through the free agent market. And we're also going to look to some trades to help the team. And speaking of trades, we did do a couple. We're still on the first day of the offseason, but kind of when I was offline working on all of the salary arbitration and the minor league free agents and stuff, we've done a couple of minorish trades earlier today. One was trading away the veteran third baseman who is due to make almost $6 million this upcoming season. He's wrecked physically, and we've got a rookie who's younger, better, and cheaper who took over when he was hurt last year. So that was really largely a salary dump. We also had to give away the minor league center fielder Marvin Rodriguez, who did spend some time with us last year, as well as a pitching prospect and Alex Gomez. Got a bunch of cash in return, and we also got the left-handed pitcher Jose Kim. He's fragile. I don't know if he's going to even kind of make our 26-man roster. He's arbitration eligible. We've made an offer to him. I think it's a contract that we would be able to trade. But this was really just a pure salary dump to get Andrade off of the books. And then we also traded Jose Donoso, a minor leaguer that we picked up last year, as well as Javi Vargas, who was one of the few lefties we had on our team last year, but put up a 6.09 ERA, doesn't have exceptional movement on his pitches, 31 years old, just kind of wanted to clear a little roster space. We got some more cash back, and then we also got a 28-year-old pitcher, Vinny Gutierrez. Think he potentially fits better in Coors with the 65 movement, extreme ground ball pitcher throwing in the mid to high 90s. Think he could potentially be a interesting reliever for us next year in the mix to make the 26-man roster. So that has us caught up with what we've done and what I think we want to do. So now we're going to kind of focus on arbitration over the next couple of weeks and maybe look into the trade market a bit before we get closer to the start of free agency. And we have identified a couple potential trade targets, but probably not going to go crazy until we see who actually makes it to free agency. I know that it seems a little crazy for a team that's 74 wins to potentially make an offer for Rogelio Loera, but he is such an incredible pitcher, and with that profile, I think if anyone's going to ever be effective in Coors, it's probably the best pitcher possibly in the history of Major League Baseball, who also has exceptional movement on his pitches. So probably not going to look to make a blockbuster before then to at least see who's available. We have kind of looked at Marco Anaya from the A's, who's making a ton of money. He's signed for close to $30 million for the next 4 years. But this is a guy who has been a very consistently productive major league hitter since he came up. 139 OPS plus, 135 WRC plus. Given the size of his contract, it seems like he's someone that could possibly be picked up in trade. Another guy that we're kind of thinking about in the back of our mind is Omar Jones, closer for the Braves. Right-handed pitcher, but with that excellent movement, 70 to 75, depending on your scout and depending on whether he reaches his potential. Ground ball pitcher, thrown in the mid to high 90s, fan favorite, good personality, coming off a year with 56 saves at just 26 years old. He could be someone we could build around for the next few seasons. He's definitely available in trade. The issue, though, is that his arbitration number is expected to be about $15 million next year. So a lot of money for a closer, and although he does have good stamina, he's a two-pitch pitcher with the fastball and the sinker. I think he's incredibly effective out of the pen, but no real option to make him a starter with that wretched changeup is his third pitch. So a couple of guys that we're thinking about in Anaya and Jones for trade, but don't feel like we have to pull the trigger on either of those right now. Probably just going to see what happens in arbitration, see what the team looks like as free agency begins, and then start making some of the more difficult decisions at that point in a few weeks. And just one other thing that I had thought, that if we don't end up pulling off a trade for one of those high salary players and we don't make a giant splash in free agency, the other option clearly would be to sign some of our better players who are currently arbitration eligible to a longer term deal that is potentially a bit front loaded this coming year, when we're going to have a lot of money to spend and maybe not a ton of people to spend it on. And I think the obvious candidate for a contract like that would be the left fielder Andrew Booker. I don't love his personality. I don't love the fact that he's only 25 years old and he's already fragile. But if you want to look at a young player on our team who is on the way to potentially becoming a pretty impactful major league hitter, it would be Booker, who made an all-star team this year, his first full season, and went out and hit .316, 31 homers, 101 ribbies. Could give him a front-loaded contract, buy out the rest of his minimum salary years and his arbitration years. It almost feels like with him it's a little too early to do it, and not a guy that I love making a long-term commitment to just because of the fragility and the less than optimal personality. But kind of perusing the roster that we have and maybe looking to sign a few of the better younger players to extensions that, again, are perhaps a bit front-loaded into this year if we're not, or into next season, 2050, if we're not able to make a huge splash in free agency or bring on a lot of salary in trade. Would like to make sure that we're using that money for something, and signing some of our own players to extensions is one final option that we're going to be considering in the coming weeks and months, depending on how the offseason goes. And we're going to make another trade here, I think, just to get two guys making the major league minimum off of the 40-man roster. A couple of pitchers that we talked about last season who both split times between AAA and the majors last year. Angel Moreno, incredible stuff and more than acceptable movement, and he is a hard-throwing ground ball pitcher. The issue is he's got 25 control, he's fragile physically, and in 8 innings in the majors last year, he struck out an incredible 16 batters, but he also walked an almost as incredible 14 batters. Just not the kind of guy that I want to build around. And Danny Araujo, kind of the opposite situation, a guy with 35 movement, an extreme fly ball pitcher who doesn't throw that hard. He was actually somewhat successful in the majors last year, pitched 38 innings for us, 2.37 ERA, and only allowed 4 home runs. Has a good personality, but just don't think that his profile is going to be sustainable in Coors. And given that it's conceivable that pitching is an area where we look to add some talent this offseason, don't kind of mind giving up both of those guys to clear some roster space and to clear some capacity to take on contracts, even if it's only $1.4 million between the two of them. Kind of targeting Darius Stokes, 24-year-old third baseman, not a big-time prospect. He's fragile. He's really good defensively, and a good personality generally. Has a little bit of home run pop. Feel like he's a guy who could be a backup first and third baseman for us down the line who will hit enough home runs, particularly in Colorado, to not be a total black hole in terms of the roster. Importantly, he's also got 3 option years left, so feel like he's kind of the best option out there. Not a ton of different offers of people, as you can see here. And think that it's a little bit of addition by subtraction. We get rid of 2 pitchers who are on major league contracts that we're not really excited about. Not claiming that I'm incredibly excited about Stokes, but at the very least, he's a guy who's under our control for the next 3 seasons, can move him up and down between the majors and the minors at our will. Probably going to be a minor league player for the foreseeable future, but generally good influence on those around him. And as I said, maybe he's a 25th or 26th man on our roster at some point in the next couple of seasons, given that he does have that good glove, the good personality, and at least is going to, maybe have the ability to hit a home run every, 16, 18, 20 at-bats playing in Coors. All right, and we're starting to make a little progress here with some of the minor league free agent offers that we've made, as well as Jose Kim, who we just picked up, as we talked about in that trade with Toronto. Think he could be a guy at the back end of our pitching staff. The fans excited a little bit about that. Jordan Stallworth and Danny Jackson, left-handed reliever and second baseman, also signed. Stephen Moore, starting pitcher from last year, signed. And we're also getting some of our coaches signed, pitching coach Jose Silva and manager Tyler Skaggs down in the minors. So that's some progress there. I think we still have two offers outstanding down in our rookie ball teams, both in the Dominican League. Hopefully we can get those guys signed, and then we'll have a full coaching staff settled. Looking at salary arbitration, you can see at this point just Vinny Gutierrez and Juan Gonzalez out there. Oh, and it looks like Juan Bin Daoud must have not liked our offer. I missed that in all of the quickly clicking on these. But we definitely made... okay. Oh, he wants to be the closer. Interesting. So that's why he refused that offer. So would be nice if we could just get him signed without having to go to arbitration, and probably going to check in on Tyrone Colbert and Chris Gonzalez. I'm guessing, Colbert not interested in talking. Probably still the same situation with Chris Gonzalez. Juan Bin Daoud, he was a guy we knew from Pittsburgh. He was pretty ineffective in Colorado this past year. And although he's good in the clubhouse, his movement is a little bit of a concern. And he gave up 8 home runs in 58 innings pitched, but not really materially worse than the home run rate that he had in Pittsburgh. But his overall results were certainly worse in terms of his ERA plus. Although when you look at his WAR and his Sierra and even his FIP minus, was in some ways just as effective or similarly effective here. I may actually look to see what, if anything, we can get for him in trade, although he's extremely popular, and with our fan interest at a pretty mediocre 75. We started the offseason, I think, at 71, so we've just made a tiny bit of progress with the moves that we've made. He would be a tough guy to take off of the staff, but I don't think I can promise him a role as a closer in good conscience. So we'll have to give that one a little more thought. And we won't have to give it too much thought because Bin Daoud, similar to the other guys, just isn't going to talk. So it's just a matter of whether we want to offer him arbitration. Estimate is about $2.8 million. Honestly, at this point, I think I might look and see what's available in the trade market. I don't know how much demand there's going to be out for him, but he is a pitcher who may be more successful away from Coors Field. So feel a little bad because he was one of the first guys we brought on last year. We knew him from Pittsburgh when we didn't have good scouting reports, and can't remember what we gave up for him. We got Victor Aguilera and Aaron Timmons with him. Oh, okay, yeah. This was the trade of our third baseman from the year before, who had actually won a Silver Slugger in 2000. No, he was an all. Yes, he was a Silver Slugger in 2048 with us, with a 325 average and 52 doubles. Felt like we had the young third baseman coming up, and he was also signed to a contract, $8.9 million this past season, and then 11, 13 after that. Felt like it was a lot of money for the Rockies. In retrospect, since we're looking to flip Bin Daoud right now, probably not the best trade in the world, but also glad that we're not locked into that contract, particularly since we do have, at this point, the young third baseman Alex Ortega, who hit 22 home runs for us last year and just 282 at-bats at the major league level. So feel like he's got a pretty good glove for third base, and that home run power probably will continue to play well in Colorado. I think we may look to bring on the minor league shortstop, Alex Varela. Good personality, solid defensive player, good guy who could help our minor league system the next couple years if we needed him in the majors. In a pinch, I think he'd be okay. I mean, he hit 268 in Double-A last year. Certainly doesn't have a profile of a big-time major league hitter, especially with that lack of home run power. But I don't know that I want to be paying Juan Bin Daoud around $3 million next year, since we're not going to be able to sign him before arbitration. Love that he's an Iron Man. Like that he's popular in the clubhouse. Fans are not going to be upset if we trade him away. But I just don't think that profile with the mediocre movement is going to play any better in Colorado than it did last season as he gets older. And we're able to get the Astros to throw in a little bit of cash in addition to picking up Varela for Bin Daoud. So given that he's not pleased with us, he wants to be the closer, and he won't even negotiate with us, and I don't think he's going to be all that effective in Colorado. I think it's probably time to just cut our losses and move on. We'll take the hit in terms of the fan interest. 3-point hit there down to 72, but hopefully that opens up a little more capacity with the trade of him and the previous trades of the young relievers, Moreno and Araujo. Hopefully that opens up some capacity for us to make some trades and or sign free agents this offseason who are going to be popular. You can see the amount of money that we're kind of building up at this point is getting interesting. Although theoretically, I think when we do hit the start of free agency, since we're still technically in the 2049 season for salaries, it's going to flip over to this number here for extensions is actually going to be kind of the number that we're thinking about for free agency. So maybe we don't have quite as much as I had hoped, but I think with some of the moves we're making, still hopefully moving in the right direction in terms of our capacity to take on some contracts. And we've gotten our rookie ball pitching coach and manager signed, so I think that should give us a full complement of minor league coaches. The reliever, Vinny Gutierrez, another one of the guys that was arbitration eligible that we picked up in trade just a matter of less than a week ago. I also got him signed to his extension to avoid arbitration, so a tiny bump in fan interest there. And now at this point, just Gonzalez and Colbert left, the two players who we've made offers to but are unwilling to talk turkey with us. So hopefully we can win those arbitration cases and figure out exactly what the financial situation is going to look like as we get closer to free agency. And not surprisingly, not a lot of hardware for the Rockies in awards season this year. I did get one Silver Slugger Award, the young designated hitter Andrew Booker, who we were talking about, young outfielder who's fragile, not a great personality, but certainly had a really successful first full-time season in the majors, hitting over 300 with over 30 homers and over 100 ribbies. When we look at a contract extension for him, he's just looking for a one-year deal, more than the major league minimum that he's scheduled to make. As I talked about, I'd love to open up some capacity for us to pay someone a lot this coming year in an extension. I just don't know that we've got anyone who really kind of fits the bill for that in terms of their age, their productivity, and what they're going to be making. Chris Gonzalez is maybe one option, is a pitcher, good personality, but not a perfect profile for Coors. Was fine this past year and has been fine the year before. ERAs in the mid-4s in Coors are actually pretty respectable, and you can see his WARs all 3 years that we can see right here are pretty respectable, but he's also one of the guys who's not even willing to talk to us right now. So depending on how the arbitration goes, he may be quite reticent to extend with us. Tyrone Colbert is a guy that we traded for that I really would like to extend. Similar to Chris Gonzalez, unfortunately, he's angry and not willing to talk with us, but he's another guy that could maybe make a longer-term deal with, but both of those guys are going to be locked in as their numbers for next year. So again, front-loaded contract just doesn't really seem to work. I guess if we were really excited about the right fielder Juan Gonzalez, that could work, but and he was productive last year, hit just 222, but did have 33 homers, 86 ribbies, but not a great contact hitter. He's a feast or famine slugger who doesn't walk a ton and strikes out more than average. So not the kind of guy I want to make a long-term commitment to. We just don't have a lot of those kind of players right now, unfortunately. So I like the idea of a front-loaded contract with the amount of salary capacity we potentially have. I just don't think that the roster right now is built for that. So we may look when we get to free agency to go after a big free agent or two hard, or perhaps make a trade and take on some salary that way. And we'll check in on the big award winners in the American League. Alex Mills of the Red Sox, the unanimous Cy Young Award winner. 16-5 with a 2.57 ERA, 334 strikeouts. Rogelio Loera, who we were talking about, potential free agent from the Yankees, finished second in the voting. In the National League, Jerry Ibarra of the Brewers, a unanimous winner, 22-4, 2.60 ERA, 241 strikeouts, a big year for him. Taking a look at the AL MVP, Josh Hurd of the Texas Rangers. Pretty big year, 56 homers, 133 ribbies. Oh, we talked about him. He's also potentially going to be a free agent. Hit just 266, but seems to be hitting free agency at an optimal time. Former star with the Pirates, Isaiah Hill, third in the voting, his first year with the Yankees. Had, it looks like, a resurgent year there, hitting 326 with 47 homers and 129 ribbies in his first year in the AL as he continues on his Hall of Fame path. And former Pirates farmhand Angel Aguilar had another great year, 48 homers and 111 ribbies for the Angels. Last but not least, NL MVP Rich Gilbo. I believe this is a guy who was a #1 overall pick. Yeah, we looked at him 7 seasons ago at this point and thought he looked like an incredible prospect, and certainly is. Led the NL in batting average at .342, hits with 201, 51 doubles this year. Great defensive outfielder, great bat. You can see he's got a lot of hardware over the career in terms of MVP awards, All-Stars, and Silver Sluggers. Little surprised with those ratings that he's never won a Gold Glove in center field, but still had a really nice career. Jamal Cohen, our first baseman, did get some votes for MVP, so good to see a little bit of recognition for him, but clearly based on the number of votes we got for the various awards and the fact that all we do have is the lone Silver Slugger winner with Mr. Booker, this roster can definitely be improved this coming offseason. And we've made it to arbitration day. We've got those offers out to Chris Gonzalez and Tyler Colbert. We'll see whether we win or not. We were at $2.95 million with Gonzalez, $2.1 million for Colbert, so both pretty nice raises for each of them. We'll find out what we're going to end up paying them next year shortly, and then we can also check in with them on how they're feeling about potential extensions in the team after the brutal arbitration process is complete. Ooh, and we lost both of our cases. We offered Gonzalez $2.95. He made almost he's going to be making almost $3.7 million this coming year. Wow, good for him. And then we also lost the case with Colbert, but much smaller difference there. We offered 2.1. He got paid 2.25. So we've got both of those guys back, which is something. Ended up paying them a little more than we thought we would, but headed to free agency now. Filings are going to be tomorrow, so we'll finish today and find out who is actually going to be on the open market. And we've got some international free agents too. We'll take a very quick look. Lefty reliever Ricky Aravalo. Could use a lefty, but kind of meh. Doesn't look like there's going to be too much that's all that interesting to us here. Some potential guys we could maybe pick up for the minors, but no one that's going to be a big change. We did just lose a hitting coach who's going to the Hanwha Eagles. So unfortunate that happened. Free agent signing, Josh Hurd, Rogelio Loera on the list as we thought they might be. Former closer in Pittsburgh on a couple of occasions. Ricky Rios, also a free agent. So we're going to have some decisions to make this offseason, that's for sure. And as we get ready for free agency, the moves that we've made have opened up a lot of money. If we want to sign any one player on the market, we definitely have the opportunity to do that. You can see our player payroll is down to just $87 million. So even though we have adjusted our scouting and development budgets a little bit, still spending $50 million there, but up the scouting a bit, cut the development to kind of the point of diminishing returns at around $30 million. Still may look to increase both of those depending on what we do the rest of the offseason. But it's time to start thinking about the options that are out there on the free agent market. And taking a look at the top hitters on the free agent market, it's pretty slim pickings at the top of the market. We've talked about recently crowned AL MVP Josh Hurd. Think he's a really nice bat, obviously. But as a guy who's almost 33 years old and fragile, looking for $35 million a year, don't think that's the direction for us to go. Second base, Danny Carrio, also fragile, looking for the same kind of money. Certainly a nice bat for a second baseman, not great defensively. Don't think that's the direction we should go. Juan Rivas, the left fielder, is healthy now. Left-handed bat, almost 32 years old, recovered from that injury, normal injury proneness. As a DH, not the worst option in the world. Now, as we've talked about with Booker, we've got a guy who just won a Silver Slugger at DH who's a lot younger. We'd have to slide Booker back into left field most likely to make room for Rivas, because definitely don't want him out there every day with that brutal range and a big outfield. But at around $26 million a year, he would certainly bolster our offense, but hard to imagine that he would be the top priority for us. But certainly I think he's more realistic than Hurd or Carriou. Jesus Alcocer, durable center fielder, 35 years old, really good defensively, ton of speed, pretty solid bat too. Had a monster year in 2048. You can see he's won a slew of Gold Gloves over the years. $33 million, though, for a player who's going to be 36 the first week of the season. Don't know that that makes sense. And then catcher Derek Cobb, kind of like our catching situation right now with Gonzalez, who we picked up in a trade a year ago. Pretty bad defensively, fragile, 31 years old, looking for a lot of money. So quite honestly, out of the top handful of prospects, Rivas in the mid-$20 million range is the only one that I would think about. Looking for 6 years at around $26 million a year, so taking him to his late 30s. He wants a player option for that last year. Certainly a bat that would help us. I don't know that that's really the right direction for us to go, even though we certainly have the money to afford it. So that is one move that we'll be giving some thought. Next thing to do is to check in on the pitchers. And as we talked about, possibly the best pitcher in the history of Major League Baseball, Rogelio Loera, out as a 37-year-old free agent, but stuff is still incredible. Movement well above average, extreme ground baller. Think he would certainly be a positive addition to the pitching staff, obviously. We talked about well over 5,000 strikeouts and a little over 3,000 innings pitched. Just a incredible career that he's had. Struck out over 400 batters twice in a season. 243 wins, so outside chance at being a 300-game winner, which in this day and age, 2049 in the majors is probably even rarer than it is back in 2023. Looking for a ton of money, of course. How long is he looking for? Oh, he's not even interested in joining our organization, so that may have kept us from making a very bold move. Kind of get it at this point in his career. He's won a ton of hardware. He was a champion in 2039. Was that with the Red Sox? Houston in 2039. Okay. It's hard for me to remember who won all of these championships in those previous years. So no option to bring him on board, which may again keep us from doing something a little unnecessarily aggressive. Kind of weird. Our buddy Juan Bin Daoud, who we traded away, team that we traded him to, decided to let him go in arbitration. I don't know why they would have given us a middling shortstop prospect and some cash to not offer him arbitration. Don't think he's necessarily our top priority. Bobby Vega is a pitcher with a pretty good profile, 70 movement. I think he would definitely be a really good arm out of the bullpen. He may want to start. That makes it a little more difficult, but certainly think he would be an interesting player to consider. And thinking about another left-handed arm, Joseph Buscacuro. Fan favorite, good personality, lefty. The movement is probably not what we're looking for in Colorado, though. So you look at guys with big movement. Ricky Rios, our former reliever in Pittsburgh. Bobby Vega, who we talked about. Dave Alvarado, starter, looking for $26 million, though. But he's only 30 years old, normal injury proneness, excellent movement, extreme ground ball pitcher who throws in the mid to high 90s. That could be the way to go, because you look at this, he's got a 6-pitch arsenal, but really only 5 that you would ever want him to throw. And according to our scout, they're all very good to above average, or above average to very good, I guess would be the way to describe it best. So his stuff is above average, his control is a little bit above average, and he's got the great movement. Over the course of his career, he's been a better than average player as far as his ERA plus and his FIP minus, a WAR of 21. Looking for a lot of money, $26 million a year. But he would certainly be the best pitcher on our team. And at 30 years old, was an all-star a season ago, not this past year. Question is how many years he's looking for. 9 years at $26 million a year with a player option and potential loss of a draft pick. I don't know that we want to go for that type of length in the contract, but certainly if we're looking for someone with the really good movement that may profile as a real effective pitcher or a more effective pitcher in Colorado, he kind of stands out compared to the rest of the crew at this point. So we have got a lot to think about. We've got a lot of money to spend, and we've got a 74-win team that has a lot of opportunities for improvement. I think the focus should be on pitching. So from that perspective, Dave Alvarado is definitely one to think about. Again, as I said, I don't see myself giving any 30-year-old pitcher a 9-year deal. I guess if someone was an Iron Man or maybe durable as far as their injury proneness, I would think about it. But his normal injury proneness doesn't scare me that much. But a 9-year commitment at pretty big money is what scares me. But with that movement and with the extreme ground ball, with the fact that he throws hard, he may be the guy that I'm thinking about targeting here to kind of take over as our new ace and hopefully help us improve the pitching staff. But we are going to give it some more thought as to what the approach in free agency should be. If you've got any thoughts, please share them with us down below. If you've watched a lot, if you've watched a lot of episodes, you'll know that sometimes I say thank you for the input. It helped change my decision. And sometimes I say thank you for the input, but I had already filmed the next 3 episodes by the time I posted this. And although your idea was really smart compared to what I ended up doing, there was no way I could do it. But if you've got thoughts, please share them. Always enjoy hearing what people are thinking. And I'm going to give it some thought between now and whenever I do record the next episode. Want to improve our pitching. I think Alvarado might be a way to do it. But in the meantime, as I said, I'm also going to do some player searches, peruse the trade market. I'm guessing there's not a ton available in terms of big-time players on the trading block this time of year. Actually, among pitchers, Greg Gaylord, former Pittsburgh Pirate on the trade block. That's interesting. Doesn't have a perfect profile for Colorado, unfortunately, but he won 2 Reliever of the Year awards in Pittsburgh. Ferdinand Nielsen is a 27-year-old. Wonder why he's on the trade block. Led the NL in strikeouts 2 straight years. Not a great personality. He is an extreme ground ball pitcher with a little bit above average movement. He's interesting. Taking a look at batters on the trade market. Catcher Andres Coronel. Another Pittsburgh guy. Looks like Pittsburgh is just blowing things up. Coronel making some decent money, and we're pretty set at catcher, but he's an Iron Man. He's got great ability. Would be incredible pitching platoon or catching platoon to have him and Gonzalez together, but we would need Pittsburgh to retain a huge chunk of his contract to make that anything remotely palatable to us. But we can also just search for anybody. Just because they're not on the trade block doesn't mean that we can't put a deal together to bring some talent onto the team. So that's what we're going to focus on our next episode is the free agent market, the trade market, and exactly what our options are for these Rockies to start improving this roster. We're in rebuilding mode, and we've got a lot of money to spend, at least compared to the amount of money I'm used to spending in the offseason after 27, now 28 years as GM in Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and now Colorado. Don't know that we've ever had so much money to spend in the offseason, so it's going to be like a kid in the candy store as we try to improve this Colorado Rockies roster, and hopefully I will spend the money more prudently than I might have when I had a $5 bill in the convenience store when I was 10 years old. But we will find out about that in our next episode. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and hope you have a great day.